The Finger Lakes has been called one of the greatest Riesling regions in the world and America's premier cool climate wine region. Much of that success has been shaped by a handful of European winemakers who have blended the best of old world traditions, training, and experience with new world innovation, a willingness to experiment and to share ideas, and the flexibility to adjust to any given situation.
Of all the places in the US, the Finger Lakes is probably one where you feel that strong European influence and roots.
We have quite a few producers here that have an old world influence. Either the founders or descendants of the founders have come from Europe.
If you look at Europe as a wine region, there's a lot of know-how and history, especially in cool climate regions such as Germany and Northern Europe.
And to bring those traditions with them, and then to complement new technology, innovation that's available in the new world with the old world practices, it's really a wonderful marriage of philosophies.
One could argue that old world influence started with Charles Fournier, a respected winemaker from Reims, France, the unofficial Champagne region of the world, who was brought to the Finger Lakes following Prohibition to help run Gold Seal Winery's sparkling wine production.
Can't be understated how important Charles Fournier was for the Finger Lakes. He was able to kind of bridge the gap between natives and hybrids and vinifera.
But Fournier's biggest contribution to the Finger Lakes region was his willingness to take a chance on another immigrant, Dr. Constantin Frank, who claimed the delicate vinifera grapes used to make fine European-style wines like Riesling, Pinot, Cab Franc, and Chardonnay could be grown in the northeastern United States. For over a century, the common belief was that vinifera couldn't be grown here due to the region's cold climate. Fournier gave Dr. Frank the opportunity to prove everyone wrong, and in doing so, helped lay a foundation for the influence European winemakers would have on the region and beyond.
Constantine came as an immigrant from Europe in 1951, armed with his PhD degree, and the thesis was techniques for growing Vitis vinifera in a cold climate. So he had the perfect background coming to the Finger Lakes, a cool climate region.
By drawing on their own expertise and skills, as well as sharing their knowledge with others, pioneers like Constantin Frank and Herman Weimer, and those who have taken up after them, began transforming the region into a land of possibility, one vine at a time.
Herman's father was in charge of the experimental station in Bernkastel in Kues for plant propagation. Herman grew up in that environment. He made his way through Geisenheim, hand grafting. He brought that knowledge and that understanding of plant propagation to the region.
You realize this is a place that reminds me a lot by home. We have the same temperatures, we have the shale, we have the beautiful landscape.
We're in one of the few regions in North America that has a lot of common with some of the classic Northern European regions.
Leaning on the work of Franks and Herman of putting vinifera in the ground, taking that risk, seeing what it does, has been vital.
We are now growing the same grapes that originated in Germany, in Austria, and northern France. We've also recruited some winemakers to be part of our winemaking team. And so we felt it was great to recruit Europeans from these famous winemaking schools because their climate was more similar to ours here in the Finger Lakes. And over the years, a number of them have started their own wineries.
I was born into a family of farmers and winemakers and growers. So it was kind of, I guess you can say, predestined for me to do that.
My ancestor always worked in vineyard and winemaking for maybe 10, 12 generations. And all of this heritage from each of these people is things that I learned since I'm a kid, maybe 3, 4 years old, when I started to help my dad and my grandfather.
I'm from Germany, if you haven't noticed it yet. I come from the Weinbau region, Mosel. We're really known for our Rieslings.
My starting point are the time-honored traditions that I have both learned in winemaking school in France and that we practice in the south of France.
Some of the traditions that Herman introduced here to the Finger Lakes, you have to be in the vineyard throughout the whole process to really know what you're going to get.
I see myself first and foremost as a grower. If you love to cook, what do you need to make a beautiful meal? You need a good ingredient. And the ingredient for us is the fruit being cut off the plant at harvest time.
Some ways of working both in the vineyard and the winery, the outlook on how you operate growing grapes and winemaking here can be traced back to Europe, where one of the things that was really driven home was this idea of transparent winemaking, where our job as a winemaker is not to engineer or to shape or to mold the wines as we see fit, but basically to read what the Finger Lakes and our particular pieces of land had to offer and kind of get out of the way and just help guide the wines and express not only the vintages, which vary a lot in the Finger Lakes, but also the individual sites where the grapes are grown. And that's a fundamental difference in the way winemaking is approached.
Winemaking for us has a lot to do with what you do in the field. So we focus a lot on the grape growing.
In the case of Riesling, we want the Riesling to be made in the vineyard. That's a very important old world philosophy.
Therefore, of course, it goes back to the vineyard again. You need good fruit.
In terms of planting, looking at the soil is really important. So there's lots of tradition and heritage with planting different grape varieties on different soil types.
With me coming from the Moses River, I'm used to slate, and that's where I looking to have my Riesling grown. Slate that gets a nice minerality.
Certainly modern techniques and modern equipment makes it easier. You can't lose focus of some of these really simplistic ideas of where are you getting your fruit from.
My great-grandfather Constantine had so many different varieties from all over the world to see what worked and what didn't work. And that New World philosophy of let me pave this path, let me experiment, let me try this. Constantine had that idea when he arrived here.
Is it traditional or modern? Sometimes actually history repeats itself. Here at Weimer, we're very responsible and gentle farming, and that's really what you did in the old days, but it's considered to be very modern to put a lot of effort into sustainable farming.
You just need to make the best of the mix of both of the technique. Here in the Finger Lakes, we have the flexibility of doing this. In Europe, it took what, 2, 3, 4, 500 years to find out where to plant, what to plant, and how to farm it. It takes centuries to do that. It takes thousands of years. So here, we are just at the beginning of the process. For a young winemaker, it's very interesting.
We're trying to do what the old world did hundreds of years ago. We're trying to do that very fast. It takes trial and error. It takes taking that risk of, well, that didn't work, so I'm going to rip that out, I'm going to start over, and know that you're getting to a better place.
That flexibility to experiment and pave the way and to share what you learn is a distinguishing trait of the Finger Lakes.
The openness, the willingness to share knowledge, and also the humbleness basically to bring problems to the table and to try to solve them together, which is, I would really think, very, very unlikely in other places.
Everyone has kind of like a farmer sharing, helping mentality. There's a lot of collaboration. We love what we do, and I think you can feel it throughout the region.
I haven't experienced this kind of togetherness any place I went before. Certainly there will be collaborations among others in other wine areas. But the bottom line is the Finger Lakes are very, very unique concerning working together. I think the reason why Finger Lakes get such a strong reputation now is because people are not hesitant to share their problems with one another and try to find solutions.
Maybe it's the fact that the region is a vast rural setting composed mostly of small towns and farms, where being neighbors goes beyond living next door, but also means sharing a culture and a common interest. Maybe that's why the region is built on competitors working together, on collaboration. The winemakers take their craft very seriously, and the results show. But the people here have also grown to value togetherness, camaraderie, helping each other succeed in crafting quality wines, and in sharing a bit of themselves with others. The Old World experience and traditions, as well as the New World boldness to break from tradition when needed, and the flexibility to do so, combined with that unique we're in this together mentality and community spirit, and deep down passion for sharing knowledge and the results of their efforts, have all worked together to establish the Finger Lakes as a special place for wine lovers.